As the years passed, the political atmosphere across the Hausa states became increasingly tense. Trade routes continued expanding across West Africa, bringing wealth into powerful cities. But wherever wealth existed, conflict often followed. Control of territory meant control of commerce, and rulers understood that economic survival depended heavily on military strength. This reality shaped the upbringing of many future leaders within the Hausa kingdoms. But for Amina, military discipline became more than royal education. It became part of her identity. According to oral traditions, she spent increasing amounts of time around soldiers and cavalry units. The training grounds of Zazzau exposed her to the realities of warfare at an early age. She watched commanders organize formations. She observed the preparation of horses before military exercises, and she learned how discipline shaped the effectiveness of armies. In the Hausa states, cavalry warfare played a major role in military success. Horse-mounted soldiers could travel quickly across open terrain, allowing kingdoms to respond rapidly to threats and military opportunities. Maintaining cavalry forces required resources, organization, and strategic planning. Horses themselves were valuable assets. Only strong kingdoms could maintain large and disciplined cavalry units, and the leaders who commanded these forces held significant influence. As Amina trained alongside experienced warriors, she began developing skills that separated her from ordinary royalty. She learned endurance. She learned coordination. And perhaps most importantly, she learned composure under pressure. Military training demanded focus. Mistakes during combat preparation could become deadly during real conflict. Warriors trained repeatedly to build instinctive discipline, and oral traditions describe Amina as someone who embraced these demands with seriousness and determination. Over time, the soldiers around her reportedly began recognizing her commitment, not because she was born into royalty, but because she trained with consistency. This growing respect became important. Leadership in military culture could not rely entirely on titles. Commanders needed confidence from the warriors under them, and confidence was earned through demonstrated ability. Outside the training grounds, however, the wider political world remained unstable. Competition between neighboring territories continued shaping regional relationships. Kingdoms formed temporary alliances when necessary. Others prepared defensive strategies against possible invasions. The struggle for influence remained constant. In such an environment, rulers had to think strategically about both warfare and diplomacy. Amina's exposure to political discussions within the palace gave her insight into these challenges. She witnessed how decisions about trade affected military security. She saw how alliances could shift rapidly depending on economic interests. And she began understanding that ruling a kingdom required more than physical strength. It required intelligence. It required patience, and it required the ability to anticipate threats before they arrived. According to historical traditions, Amina became increasingly confident as she matured. Her understanding of military systems deepened, and her familiarity with the political realities surrounding Zazzau continued growing. At the same time, the kingdom itself faced pressure to maintain influence within the region. Trade networks connecting West Africa and North Africa brought prosperity. But they also attracted competition from rival powers seeking greater control. Protecting these routes became essential for long-term stability. Military readiness, therefore, remained central to survival. This environment strengthened Amina's belief in preparation and discipline, because weakness in leadership could expose entire kingdoms to danger. As she trained, she also developed a deeper understanding of cavalry movement and battlefield organization. Military campaigns in that era often depended heavily on mobility. Fast-moving units could control supply routes, respond quickly to threats, and pressure rival territories strategically. Terrain mattered, timing mattered, organization mattered, and successful leaders understood how to combine these elements effectively. Oral traditions later remembered Amina as someone deeply connected to military culture, not as a symbolic figure standing behind armies, but as someone actively involved in leadership and preparation. This distinction became one of the reasons her legacy survived for generations. Because stories of rulers often fade over time, but stories of disciplined leaders who transform kingdoms tend to endure. Within the palace, political responsibilities also became increasingly important. As a member of the royal family, Amina observed how rulers balanced military strength with economic stability. Maintaining order within growing trade centers required organization and authority. Merchants needed protection. Communities needed security. And rival states constantly monitored opportunities for expansion. Leadership therefore demanded constant vigilance. The pressure surrounding royal authority could be immense. Every decision carried consequences for the future of the kingdom, and over time, Amina's experiences prepared her for these responsibilities. But her path toward leadership would eventually become shaped by major political changes inside Zazzau itself, because succession within powerful kingdoms often altered the direction of entire states, and as tensions across the region continued evolving. The future of Zazzau would soon depend on new leadership. For Amina, the years spent training, observing, and learning had quietly transformed her from a curious royal daughter into someone increasingly prepared for command. The discipline of the cavalry shaped her mindset. The instability of regional politics shaped her understanding of power. And the realities of trade and warfare shaped her vision of leadership. But beyond the borders of Zazzau, neighboring powers still competed for dominance. No kingdom remained secure forever. And soon, the responsibilities of protecting Zazzau would no longer belong to others. They would belong to Amina herself.